But she actually queued it up very nicely. Battelle is a charitable trust, is not set up as a nonprofit over 80 years ago in the state of Ohio. And so our founder, Gordon Battelle, died of sepsis from appendicitis rupture. And then after, he was like in his 30s, so it was completely not planned, so to speak, accidental. And then his mother passed away a couple years ago, and she added her fortunes to the organization. And so his will, the way he set it up was that, he wanted us to be a nonprofit research and development company that was going to further science for all mankind. Fast forward 85 plus years forward, we have a nonprofit. 95% of that goes back to science and technology, research and development. 5% of that goes into philanthropy. I manage all of Battelle's regional philanthropy. So throughout the years being established as a charitable trust in the state of Ohio, we were required to spend 66% of our funds in Central Ohio. My job is to grab that other 34% and spend it around places that we do a great deal of that in the DC area, trying to really help OSSI and DCPS get a firm grounding in STEM, beyond just the science and the math, particularly the math that's been tested ad nauseum over the last few years. We're really been focused more on that bigger picture, and I think Jackie did a really great job of looking at it. So one of the things that Battelle does is that we manage Department of Energy labs. And we think about STEM in a broader context, and a lot of our government clients will come to us and say, we have a problem, how do you solve it? And so we have some of those 3 named agencies that go unnamed in places outside of the Spy Museum, but certainly during the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, the government would bring us problems and say, can you solve these? How do you create vehicles that withstand IEDs? And so we can take vehicles into labs and retrofitted them so that a Humvee can pass over an IED and survive most of that explosion. I mean, those are things that are like trial and error, right? You don't know if you need these things when you first started. And so I get to fund some of the really fun things that go along outside of that. Basically, 85% of that is focused on teaching and learning. And so we're in some really small areas, like St. Robert, Missouri. This is my big season where I ask people in the summer, hey, why don't you work with teachers in your communities and come back to me and talk to me about some of the projects that they would like to be in their classroom. And what I always say to our folks is, don't bring me classes that look like my kids, right? I don't want to deal with kids that are middle class and above. I really want to be in rural and urban areas where kids think that I can't do STEM, and some of the teachers think that my kids can't do STEM. Really everybody can do STEM, and I want it to be an inclusive model, so I get to challenge my colleagues. And the reason I say why STEM matters is because in Battelle, the folks that get paid to do and work on scientific projects, they get to do really exciting things. I want to show you a great project that one of my colleagues spent 20 years working on. I mean, there's a slide in here we talk about he started working on this project when the iPod had first come out, or maybe it was a Nano, I don't know, we'll see in a minute. But this is something that is like at the core of solving a STEM problem for us.
Major milestone in his quest to live a normal life once again, and we were there for the moment of truth. Dean Reynolds shows us the groundbreaking technology in action. It's a story you'll see only on CBS This Morning.
4 years ago, Ian Burkhart was an athletic 19-year-old lacrosse-playing young man with an unlimited future. Then he went on vacation, had a freak swimming accident, and was paralyzed from the chest down. So when he arrived at the Ohio State University Wexner Medical Center last week, he had the highest of hopes that a new medical experiment might change his fate and the fate of others.
Are you perfectly fine with being a guinea pig?
Yeah, I don't mind at all.
Ian had brain surgery 2.5 months ago as the first patient in an unprecedented medical trial involving surgeons from Ohio State and engineers from Battelle, a nonprofit research center who created a technology called NeuroBridge. Chad Bowden is a Battelle engineer.
The technology is going to take
brain activity from a tiny chip we've implanted in the brain and translate that activity to a language that muscles can understand, and then send those signals to the muscles, and he's going to be able to open and close his hand.
And that bypasses the damaged spinal cord?
That's right.
The microchip is connected to a port screwed onto Ian's skull. The port is cabled to a computer which is supposed to decode messages from his brain and then beam commands to a sleeve laden with electrodes around his forearm.
Squeeze really tight.
Last Wednesday, Ian's team assembled in a small hospital room to see if Chad's work of a decade would bear fruit. Would Ian's concentration on that computerized image or the prompting in person from Chad
Open as wide as you can. Relax.
be strong and clear enough to send a signal to his hand? The answer took 1/10 of a second to arrive.
It's good. What do you think?
And while it looks like such a small thing, extending your fingers or clasping a spoon, no human in Ian's condition has ever done it the way he just did.
Today was great. I mean, to be able to open and close my hand and do those complex movements that I haven't been able to do in 4 years was great. Physically, it was a foreign feeling. Emotionally, it was definitely a sense of hope and excitement to know that it's possible.
The region of interest is here.
Dr. Ali Razai is Ian's surgeon.
I do believe there will be a day coming soon when somebody who's got disability, being a quadriplegic or somebody with a stroke, somebody with any kind of brain injury, can use the power of their mind, and by thinking, being able to move their arms or legs.
Ian is just happy to make that first move.
If you have the right mindset, will carry you a long way.
The right mindset. In Ian's case, he means that literally. For CBS This Morning, Dean Reynolds, Columbus, Ohio.
So one of the many components of a great STEM program when we think about critical thinking, problem solving, collaboration, right? What doesn't get said a lot is what I always yell at my, I teach Odyssey of the Mind at my kids' school, and starting with kindergartners, and they don't pay attention. I go, there's no I in STEM, there's no I in team, and then they're looking at me like, what is this crazy lady talking about? Because the biggest concept of it is when you think about being in an interactive classroom, and it's all hands-on, and you're throwing out a problem like that. Some of the problems that Jackie throws out, when kids come and they learn, is when you're thinking about solving a problem, we seldom solve it by ourselves, right? Then how do you get to a point in a classroom where you have entire teams of people working on something together? Some of that is the technical knowledge of a person like a Chad that can lead an organization and a team. But what's the next component of a great STEM program? What's the next great component for all of us that want to be successful? You're thinking about whether or not you get your high school, you get your AA, you get your bachelor's, you get your master's, you get your PhD. I'm sure that, in this room, there's all of us that have, if you want to be successful, you also have to be persistent. Chad started this work, it was 2004. I was thinking 1995 when this first iPod came out, but I guess it feels like it was that long ago because there have been so many more innovations. So one of the things, again, that I like to do with the little bit of regional dollars that I get is to prove that not only is there there are Chads all over the country, right? There are people from World War II whose parents have been exposed to what is a great engineer, what's a great scientist, folks that worked in the national labs where we work, nuclear scientists have exposure to that. Where do we find the Sierras of the world? Where do we find the people today that know that it's possible? Mistakes are out there. Mistakes can be very valuable. Failure is a part of the scientific process. It is a part of the design process. How do you make sure that when your kids are together and working as a team, that you are successful? And I know that it's very, very difficult to do. So especially when you're dealing with standards and all these things that are outside of your control and you feel like you're a robot sometimes, I think when you get into the classroom. So we like to really provoke people into going beyond science, technology, engineering, and math. Those can be very siloed, and even when they're taught in the classroom, they can be very siloed because you're going from class to class without people really thinking and linking. And I know that a lot of teachers don't get to link those things together. One of our colleagues that's set up the first STEM school in North Carolina, he now runs the North Carolina STEM Center, he rejects the notion that there's such a thing as STEM. He said that the S, T, and the M stands for any strategies that engage minds. When you think about being interactive in a classroom, you think about the learning that comes from building on your mistakes and being able to test that out and having a successful framework, then it really does go beyond something like studying the sciences or getting into the arguments with a lot of folks around earth sciences in a classroom versus environmental sciences. It's much broader than that. Jackie laid out how the S and the T are totally tied together here in this center, but it's also tied together outside in the real world. So we like to make sure that when teachers and leaders are prepared in an environment, that they're prepared to bring along all of the challenges that they bring to the school. So, Battelle, I'm going to point out my geography here, not knowing Franklin County versus some of the other counties in Central Ohio, but I'm going to go with this one right here, unless there's someone here from Ohio that can stand up and point to a better place for me. So, right outside of our...
It's actually one just above it.
This right here, this is
No, I'm just kidding.
So we started about 10 years ago with opening up one STEM school as an experiment, really for the legislature. They said, hey, what can you guys do with this? And Ohio State came and partnered with us and gave us some land. Battelle put a lot of facilities, put money into building out the facilities, and the Franklin County education system said, hey, we want to make sure that you're building a great STEM program that is inclusive, and that 50% of those kids have to be urban, the rest of them can be from the outlying areas. And Ohio is one of those places that has like 863 school districts. So every little county is not annexed or incorporated. They're all like Columbus is like surrounded by all these rings. And so from that opening up of one school, we worked with the state of Tennessee to help them reach their STEM goals, which was, I think, 9 or 10 schools from their recent top grant. And all along, building on that foundation, beyond the workforce and the classroom argument, even beyond all the jobs that, is predicted that are going to be available in DC and this area, to say, why did you guys all become teachers? Who became a teacher so they can manage the bus route? My dad had to do that actually as part of his job. Who came so they could enforce the dress code or take cell phones away from kids, no matter how many spies created that, right? Who wanted to become a teacher because they thought that the best part of their day was going to be able to follow a pacing guide or to deal with some other standard that folks, came up with and created as something to overburden you for what you do every day? Nobody? Are you sure? So, again, what we like to say and what we like to demonstrate is that a school and a building where you have dynamic teachers and dynamic leaders, and I know that it's sometimes hard to get your lead principal engaged and helping you to support your students in the best way, and so that's always a challenge. But we like to show people that any school can become a place where students...
We are extracting the DNA from a banana.
Those will be one last video and try to be
And we'll
cognizant.
mix eventually all these together. And we will stir it up and we will see white clumps in this blue liquid right here.
Today, the students are writing a standard laboratory operating procedure or a protocol for extracting DNA out of a banana as if they were working for an enzyme company. That's DNA from your banana. It's not gum. It's the good stuff. That's what we want to test tomorrow. my science lab, I try to run as real world experience as possible. So we try to put them in that career field to give them the hands-on exposure to not only the experiment itself, but what does it like in the real actual lab field for that career.
So Rachel's role is not to manage bus routes. It's not to enforce a dress code. And it's not really to work on pacing guides. It is to create a classroom environment where kids can come and prosper. But as you know, when your students prosper, so